What is good, everybody? Hello, hello. Making sure we are live. We are live. We're going to talk today about your new frequency. Your new frequency. And I know that this sounds crazy and kind of woo-woo, but I'm going to give you some context and some background around this. Essentially, in the most simple form, this is conscious leadership. Okay. So we're all leaders, whether we're aware of it or not. And a lot of times our leadership is unconscious. We're not thinking about it. A majority of our thinking habits, our speaking, our behavior is default mode, right? Or just how we've shown up. We've figured out how to show up and get results that are okay, that make us comfortable. And we're not consciously and intentionally creating the new in our life, okay? So this actually came or was inspired by the weekly Ask Juliana questions that I get, okay? So every week I do an Ask Juliana video. Essentially what that is it's me coming back to you and responding to questions that I get in my inbox, which I'll put details below this video. And you can email questions at any time. Just put in the subject, Ask Juliana, and drop your question in the body of the email and send it out to that info email. We'll sift through them and then respond to them every week. So that's essentially what I do. But I got a question about how to create the new thing in my life. So specifically when it comes to the word, right? We have new mercies every morning. We get to embrace the wonderful new, right? We're supposed to forget the former things. That's an invitation that is in the Word of God. Forget the former things so that we can perceive the new thing, right? That God is doing in our life. But this particular individual is really struggling. And I honor and totally applaud the honesty here, because once you are brutally honest with yourself and get super clear on what you're not happy with, then you can actually do something about it. If you can articulate it, if you can face your giant, if you will, then you can start slaying the giant, okay? So my answer to how to embrace the wonderful new, how to step into the wonderful new, how to build and consistently be walking in and embracing the wonderful new is activating your new frequency. Activating your new frequency. So what I mean by that is conscious leadership, and I'm going to break it down. So I did a professional life coaching certification program years ago, back in 2009. So I've been coaching, I would say, my entire life, right? But it's something that I had to learn to do very young, and that I was totally overjoyed when I found out that it actually is an industry and something that I've been wired to step into from a very young age, and is absolutely something that fuels me. It's just what I love to do. So one of the pieces that was very pivotal in this particular certification program was energy leadership. And the basic premise behind this, I'm just going to use this as a backdrop. The basic premise behind this is that we are either building with catabolic or anabolic energy in our thinking, in our emotions, in how we show up and what we hold on to and what we refuse to let go of. We're either building with anabolic or catabolic energy. Catabolic energy in its most basic form is destructive energy. It's negative, right? It's tearing apart. It's what's creating stress in our body and literally bringing disease, dis-ease into our body and into our lives. And anabolic energy is healthy energy. It's productive energy. It's life-giving energy, right? It's healing energy, okay? And these are two different energies that are operating. And the way that I get to the bottom of this, if that's too scientific for some folks, is fear and love. Okay? And then when you think about alignment, what do you want to align with? Do you want to align with fear, or do you want to align with love, right? When you align with fear, that's when you get all of this catabolic energy in motion, right? And emotion is energy in motion. So a lot of times our emotions give us insight into what we are putting into motion. They are our sensory system. They're a gift, right? But a lot of times we're told not to feel them and just meant to push them down. When really, they can inform us and help us pivot when we need to. Now, anabolic and love, right, has This is the energy of alignment, is what I like to call it. I call this God's vibes matter. How can we intentionally, consciously pursue, delight in, align with love, right? One day at a time, one moment at a time, right? Now, will we fall out of that? Right, we will. But how can we continue to keep our love on no matter what and to keep choosing it and be in the flow of that energy versus the destructive flow of the catabolic energy? Another visual way to look at this, if you're a visual person, is think about either swimming upstream and how hard that can be when you're trying to like literally go up like a white water rapid, right? And you're just getting slammed by water and running up against rocks. It is awful. But some of us live our lives that way, right? Some of us go upstream in relationships. Some of us go upstream in our work environment. Some of us go upstream in how we just handle life in general, right? When we could just turn and go downstream. And going downstream is beautiful, right? Like you are in the flow, things are working out for you, the right things are coming to you at the right time. Like you get out of the way and you go with the flow. And that's when the most beautiful, creative things happen and unfold. And you can see God's glory and his goodness. You can actually perceive it. And you're going with the flow of life rather than living against it. With me? And just for some context, the things that prevent us from going with the flow, fear. and fear is usually fear of the unknown, fear of not having control, fear of, trauma, right? So if there's been past patterns and trauma that's happened, there's still fear that that might happen again. So I'm overly cautious. I'm trying to protect myself. I'm not believing or living like I am protected, like God's got me, right? So I'm doing all of this extra work to protect myself and guard myself. I've got like a whole wall that I have to maintain just to keep it cool, right? So those are some things that prevent us from being in the present, being in the now and going with the flow. It's also bringing the past, right? Like it's unforgiveness. I continue to ruminate on these things that have happened in the past. I have so much anger stored up in my heart because I haven't released these situations. I haven't repented. I haven't turned from them, right? So they continue to come into my present. I'm bringing the past forward, or I'm trying to solve the future now. And both bring me out of the now. They both prevent me from being conscious and in the present now. Like I'm here, but like I'm somewhere off in the future, or I'm like back in the past somewhere. With me. So those are examples of things that can prevent us from not being conscious and really embracing our full creative potential right now. Okay. So when it comes to a new frequency, it comes with being conscious. Okay. Conscious of your belief system and the paradigm that you're operating from, conscious of the emotions and the emotional home that you live in every day, conscious of what's going on in your heart, right? And just really aware of how you relate with people, how you live your life, what you're engaging in, what you're under the influence of, what you're giving airtime to. This is all energy management, okay? This has everything, okay? And how you're wired, what you're motivated, how you show up, okay? Now, a new frequency, that's when you have to become aware of where you currently are. So I'll just give you an example of one of the things that I bring folks through a lot. An image that is in one of my books. It's called God's Vibes Matter, Co-Laboring with God. There's essentially a wheel of life. And on this wheel of life, you can divide it out into different segments. So this particular one has your career on there, family, parenting, personal development, spiritual awareness, fun and enjoyment, intimate and social relationships, health, and personal finance. And the idea with this is you take an assessment of where you currently are right now. Okay. So you assess on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, I feel great. I feel amazing. I feel super aligned with this area of my life. And 1 being like, I got nothing, right? So you rate them and you start to see that other areas, some might surprise you in how you rate them. And a lot of times we don't actually look deeply and intimately in these areas of our life. We just show up and keep doing more of the same things, right? So this gives you insight of like, wow, I didn't know that my spiritual awareness was so low, right? Like I don't know what's going on there, but if I shifted that up, and this is what would happen. The person would work with a coach. For example, I would work with someone help them shift that number up, because when you change one thing, you change everything. Okay, so to shift that number up, like let's say they're at a 3, getting that up at least to an 8 or 9, right? And working together and actually practically do that, okay? And to start experiencing the benefits of doing that, right? And what that looks like specifically for that person on their own unique, very personal journey, right? So that is an example of how you can start shifting your new frequency, right? You got to assess, like, where is my current frequency? Where am I giving every day? Where am I living emotionally every day? What do I have going on in my heart? You know, maybe when I actually sit down and I start journaling, that's the best way to start. We journal out things that are on our mind. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. Okay, so when you're journaling, that's giving you evidence of what's going on the inside of you. So even just having a simple practice like that, building awareness of where you're at, will give you clues about where you're being led to focus. And if you're not journaling, that's when a tool like this, or working with a coach to get clear on where you want to focus. So for example, I work with a lot of folks around relationship. And strangely enough, they'll come working on relationship, but they don't realize that they're personally struggling. Like they're not investing in personal development, which is why the relationship is an issue. With not always, but that happens quite a bit. Okay, and so making some adjustments personally actually shifts the relationship completely. So that is something that I see a lot. But those are 2 examples of what you can do to start getting insight into where am I currently, so that I can start activating a new frequency. Okay, because when you are a new frequency, meaning when I am consciously creating, we are made in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, we are creative. We are creators. And our words actually create worlds, right? So what we think about, we start to feel about, and then we speak and we behave and we act out of that, right? So it's really important to make sure that we're fixing our mind on whatsoever is pure, loving, noble, praiseworthy, right? And we often don't do that. So when you start becoming aware, you're like, wow, like I keep focusing on all the wrong things. And then you can turn that into a prayer. God, I repent for thinking on all these things. Help me to set my minds on things above and keep it set, right? And you can be doing that throughout the day. The word says pray without ceasing. So that's an example of how you can bring yourself back and start being transformed by the renewing of our mind. Okay, it might be developing a daily meditation practice where you're meditating on the word and creating space for that, right? Or you're actually spending time with God, or you're praying, or you're journaling, right? But having some sort of practice where you're actually becoming more aware of what is happening on the inside. And you start building an action plan so that you can start catching yourself and checking yourself when you are drifting out of alignment. Oh, I notice when I'm at work and this happens, I react this kind of way. But I also know that that is me under the influence of catabolic energy. That is not me staying in love. That is not me being a creator. That is not me taking initiative. That is not me serving and adding value and contributing. That's actually making it worse when I show up that way. So here is what I'm going to practice instead. And that could be communicating differently. That could be having a difficult conversation with a coworker. That could be different things, right? To actually take initiative and take ownership rather than letting things kind of be as they are, right? It could also be you could create a prayer plan for that as well, right? So there's parts that you do, there's parts that God does as well, right? So developing some sort of strategy so that you can start assessing like what's working and what's not, and actually get some feedback. The other thing too that I find a lot is that there's a lot of unhealed things that are going on the inside of us, and we store those up in our heart. Okay, so these could be, past traumas that we never released or that we're never able to heal. This could be bad habits that we've had when it comes to, let's say it's even like not setting boundaries. So we've let people kind of walk on us or take advantage of us, and now we have a lot of frustration and anger. Maybe we don't have a lot of close and intimate relationships, and so we're isolated and we don't know how to establish those, right? So really funky things can start happening, and we don't then step out. We just accept that that is how it is and that that's normal, rather than taking responsibility for recognizing, wow, like I'm actually not good at communicating and expressing myself. So perhaps the next best step is for me to find a therapist of some kind. And that could be, not just talk therapy. There's many different kinds. So somatic experience, right? And really attaching some movements, the body can release some of the things that it's stored up. That's an example, right? But again, as you start looking inward, that's where you can start to assess, like, this is where I want to change, that I can operate at a different level in my life. Because wisdom tells me that getting other people to change is not my agenda, and that is not my work, and I'm never going to be effective in that. But the person I can change is myself, right? And the process for me to do that, it can be different, right? I recommend God be involved. I have just found personally that, you know, getting deliverance from addictions and healing past traumas and all of these subtle things that are going on the inside of us, I need the one who knows it all to help me with that, right? And I didn't really step into freedom outside of self-help and all the other things that I sought, because I did seek therapy. I did do a lot of self-help work. I went to a lot of conferences, but it wasn't until God was at the center of my life that I was really led to what could help me specifically, right? Whether that was, again, leading me to a recovery program, leading me to specific mentors and coaches, right? Whatever it was, with God's direction, it was way more effective than me trying to figure out my own plan. Okay. So it could be putting God first. It could be working with a coach or working with a therapist. It could be doing a program of some kind. So you actually take yourself through something. I find that that is very effective in terms of getting feedback and building consistency. A lot of times we underestimate how much accountability we need and how much just actually having a space that is a space entirely for us just to work out what we've been walking through changes everything. A lot of times we go so fast through life that we don't even recognize how much we're experiencing, like how much we're absorbing, how much we're being exposed to, how much we're not processing, right? And how much we have to unpack. We have so much going on all the time that sometimes creating this non-negotiable you time in your schedule is what changes things, right? And helps you to get that clarity that you're after, right? I like to say that clarity, confidence, and clear direction, if we have those things, it changes everything, right? But a lot of times we don't get still enough to experience that. So those are some ways that you can think about developing conscious leadership. One, if I were to break this down into steps for you, I would say recognize that the current level that you're operating in, your default mode, is not going to bring you to that next level version of you. It's not going to bring you to that area of influence or to the connections, right, that you crave, right? If you want more in life, you have to activate a new frequency, a new version of you to get there, right? The old version of you, right, was great and brought you to where you are today, but the current version of you needs to continue to grow and develop, to continue to reach new levels and scale them out. Start looking at the things in you that can shift is the answer. Okay. So assess, number one, assess your current frequency. Are you living a majority of your life in this catabolic, fear-based energy, anxiety, negativity, overwhelm, stress, anything that's destructive and not supporting you? Are you living your life a majority of your time there from that space or that state? Or are you living your life from a anabolic, love-based, aligned, creative, energizing, life-giving space, right? Joy is usually the indicator, okay? And joy is something that's activated from within. It's something that we choose, right? And the more conscious you are, the more you choose it, or the more you have access to choose it in the moments where you need it most, right? So assess, number one, where you're living a majority of your life, okay? And then what is contributing to that, right? Like what needs to shift so that you can operate in alignment a majority of the time, right? This could be associations. It could be giving you insight to maybe certain areas of your life that need to shift. It could be maybe from journaling, your belief systems need to shift. You need to clean up around what you value, what your priorities are, what your mission is, what you are currently believing that might be a lie, sometimes we partner with lies and we feel like crap because of it. So it might be revamping some of that and working with somebody to help you do that. And then lastly, number 3, it's creating a strategy and an action plan around supporting this new frequency, right? So supporting you, creating a structure or a vehicle or a buffer, if you will, around who you're becoming, right? Because life is going to happen. There's still going to be things that surprise us, catch us off guard, mistakes, accidents. It's part of the human experience, right? However, right, we could be triggered, different things can happen. We can still be committed to this new frequency and still choose it if we have things in place, like daily habits that help us feel really strong and centered. I actually have a daily 5 that I practice every day. You can grab the download over at julianapage.com if that's something to give you some ideas. You can go find that. You're welcome. But having some sort of structure that helps you show up and be healthy. It lets you know, like, ooh, like I need to say no to this because I'm feeling like I'm getting out of alignment and I'm not going to bring my best to that thing. Or like, ooh, I'm committed to this right now, so I have to say no to this thing. So it helps you just stay focused and have really remain fixed and focused on your race so that you can give your best to the things that you were actually called to and assigned to, right? Not every, John Bevere has a great book. It's called Good or God, right? So not every good thing is a show up and represent who God put you on this earth to be well and show up with excellence and let your word mean something. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? And being consistent, which is what gives you that clarity, assessing where you are. Confidence is starting to get back to understanding who that version of you is that you want to be. And clear direction is your action plan. And you build confidence as you build integrity in showing up for all these steps that you create. So that's an example of how you can take something that sounds like crazy and like vibey and like awkward and new agey or whatever word you want to throw on it. Make it super practical and simple, right? This is leadership. It's conscious leadership. Rather than choosing to live unconsciously, rather than throwing our energy, projecting our junk onto other people, living messy, if you will, it's taking radical responsibility for thinking about what you're thinking about and assessing your emotions, right? Like, what are they telling you? What do you need to face, right? And what's going on in your heart so that you can actually show up and be a leader, be an example, be a model of what it is maybe that you didn't get, or what is it that you're inspired to be like, or who it is that you do want to become. How can you show up and more closely and finally aligned with that every day? Because that matters to you. And it's going to matter. It's your legacy, right? Who you impact is your legacy. So thinking about it from that point of view usually is a motivator. But I hope this answered the question. This is really deep work. I mean, we like dig in the weeds and we do all sorts of things with this kind of work. But this is a basic idea of one way or a flow that you can start activating a new frequency in your life. If you do vibe with this, and this is, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need. I have a self-mastery course over there called U 2.0. That's all about helping you level up this inner game so you can win in your outer game. I also have coaching programs packages over there as well. So that's something that is new to you or something that you really are sending it's your time. You need to invest in that way. I get it. I am happy to walk through with that, what that would look like for you personally. All right, guys, until next time, stay blessed.